Welcome to another episode of Islands in the League, our exclusive YouTube video series presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. The NBA is back. Halloween is here. We've got an awesome episode for you guys. Now, if you remember back in February, right after the trade deadline, we talked about in-season trades that led to a championship. And given the landscape of off-season trades over the last 4 months, I thought, let's do an episode on NBA off-season trades that led to a championship. Plus, in the second segment, I will be rating NBA players' Halloween costumes on a scale of 1 to 10 pumpkins. And lastly, we'll be joined, as always, by our resident sports betting expert, Josh Appelbaum from VSiN. All right, guys, Islands of the League, another episode. Let's get it. Let's have some fun. There's a lot of ways to build a roster in the NBA. You can obviously do it through free agency. You can make trades in season. You can draft really well and develop prospects. Or you can swing for the fences and make a trade in the offseason. And a number of teams did that. Now, part of that was that one of the top 75 players of all time, Damian Lillard, asked for a trade, requested a trade right after the NBA draft, which kind of set the table for the whole summer, and that had a domino effect. Now, prior to that, Bradley Beal had been traded to the Phoenix Suns for Chris Paul. Chris, of course, after being traded to Washington, was then rerouted to the Golden State Warriors for Jordan Poole. Wizards made another deal. Kristaps Porzingis goes to Boston. Marcus Smart goes to Memphis. And then the trade that we were all waiting for, Damian Lillard, out of the blue, 11:37 on a random Thursday. Actually, I don't know what day it was, but it seemed random at the time. Traded to the Milwaukee Bucks to pair with Giannis Antetokounmpo, which then Jrue Holiday rerouted to Boston. So really, if you think about it, you have 4 teams with championship hopes this season in the Golden State Warriors, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, and the Phoenix Suns, who swung for the fences and made some big trades. We're going to take a look at the potential impact of those trades, plus I will make a prediction or a take, whatever you want to call it. But first, let's look at historical NBA offseason trades of star players that eventually led to a championship the following season. Do you remember Big O? Oscar Robertson, the original triple-double machine? Do you remember him? I don't. I didn't watch him play. I'll be honest with you. But there's a wonderful website called basketballreference.com where you can find out a lot of stuff. Oscar Robertson was drafted number 1 overall in the 1960 NBA draft to the Cincinnati Royals, now the Sacramento Kings. Prior to the 1969 season, Bob Cousy, yes, Bob Cousy from the Boston Celtics, took over as head coach of the Cincinnati Royals. Now, during the season, he traded Hall of Fame forward Jerry Lucas. Following the season, he traded Oscar Robertson to the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the year prior, the Milwaukee Bucks had selected the number 1 overall pick, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. In that rookie season, the Milwaukee Bucks and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar won 56 games, but eventually lost to the New York Knicks in the Eastern Division Finals. The Knicks, of course, would go on to win the 1970 NBA championship. Following the loss to the Knicks, the Bucks swung for the fences here and traded for Oscar Robertson. That team would go on to win 66 games and steamroll their way to the NBA championship in 1971, the first NBA championship in Bucks history, winning 4-0 in the NBA Finals against the Baltimore Bullets. I should note here, by the way, for the purposes of this exercise, I am not talking about sign-and trades. Sign-and trades ultimately are free agency decisions, right? Kevin Durant wants to sign with the Golden State Warriors. He ends up in a sign-and-trade with D'Angelo Russell. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a player under contract. And players under contract can also be traded on draft night. Now, a famous trade on draft night happened in 1980. Now, Robert Parrish at the time was playing for the Golden State Warriors, and the Boston Celtics had the 1st and 13th pick in the 1980 NBA draft. The Golden State Warriors had the 3rd pick. The legendary Red Auerbach traded the 1st and 13th pick for Robert Parrish and the 3rd pick. The 3rd pick, they would select Kevin McHale, forming one of the most dominant big threes in NBA history. Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale. That team would then go on to win the 1981 NBA championship. Just 2 years later, in 1982, Moses Malone, coming off an MVP, yes, I said it, an MVP season with the Houston Rockets, gets traded for a future first-round pick and Caldwell Jones to the Philadelphia 76ers. That team One of the most legendary teams in NBA history, 61 wins in the regular season, 12-1 in the playoffs. That team, of course, would go on to win the 1983 NBA championship, winning 61 games in the regular season, going 12-1 in the playoffs, and sweeping the Los Angeles Lakers in the NBA Finals for the last championship for the Philadelphia 76ers. By the way, could you imagine getting the MVP and then getting traded? Now, I should say this. Moses Malone signed an offer sheet with the Philadelphia 76ers. They matched that offer sheet. He had to return, was unhappy. They traded him. I get it. But still, they traded the MVP right after he won the MVP. The next offseason trade barely made it into the offseason. It happened October 2nd, 1995. Dennis Rodman, coming off a couple of tumultuous seasons with the San Antonio Spurs, was traded to the Chicago Bulls for Will Perdue. Now think about this. Dennis Rodman, coming off 4 straight rebounding titles, gets traded to the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls, of course, would go on to three-peat. Dennis Rodman would win 3 more rebounding titles in his stint with the Bulls, taking it to 7 straight rebounding titles. Just a perfect fit for that team and a perfect fit for Phil Jackson's psychological warfare. I'm going to pause right here and interject one more time. We are talking about trades that occurred in the offseason. The offseason. And a big one. And I was in the NBA, and I remember when this happened, and I was like, holy crap. In the span of about 4 weeks, the Boston Celtics made a draft night trade with the Seattle Supersonics to get Ray Allen. Then, about a month later, they traded for Kevin Garnett from the Minnesota Timberwolves, forming, honestly, probably the first modern NBA Big Three with Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen. That team immediately won the NBA championship in 2008. Back in 2019, Anthony Davis requested a trade. He basically told the Pelicans, I want to go to the Lakers, and I want to only go to the Lakers. That deal ultimately happened. Pelicans, of course, got a haul, some draft picks. They also ended up getting the number 1 selection with their own draft pick and drafted Zion Williamson. That Lakers team the following season won the NBA championship in the bubble, and yes, I was there. No asterisk in the bubble. That was a legit championship. Now, there have been some other examples, some really good players that have been traded in the offseason that have gone on to help their team.
What about Kawhi?
That have gone on to help their team win a championship. And these guys, I wouldn't call them tier 1 stars.
Kawhi Leonard.
Okay, fine. Kawhi Leonard in 2018 wanted to get out of San Antonio. Toronto, of course, swept in, got him, traded DeMar DeRozan, hoping that Kawhi would get him over the hump, and he did get them over the hump. They beat the Orlando Magic in the first round. They beat the Milwaukee Bucks in the conference finals, and, of course, beat the Golden State Warriors to win an NBA championship for Toronto.
Who else did they beat?
They also beat the Philadelphia 76ers in one of the lowest moments of my life. Thanks, Kawhi. Thanks, Masai. Thanks, Brian Wright and Pop, for approving that trade. Anyways, back to my point. There have been other players. I think back to last year, KCP, right? Non-star, but a valuable role player. He gets traded from the Washington Wizards to the Denver Nuggets. That team goes on to win the championship. Tyson Chandler, of course, who, by the way, made some all-star teams, was Defensive Player of the Year. But at the time, getting traded in 2010 from the Bobcats to Dallas, it wasn't necessarily the ripple-making trade that we look back on now and say, oh yeah, that really actually helped Dallas win in 2011. The point of all this is off-season trades have materialized in championship runs. For sure. I'm not disputing that at all. And likely there's some I forgot. Please leave a comment. No problem with that. But if you look over the course of NBA history, I'm talking about a handful of star players that have been traded in the offseason who then went on to win a championship the following year. There's, of course, many examples of trades that had a big effect down the line. I think of Kevin Love in 2014. Cavs get to the finals in 15. They go on to win in 16. Shaq gets traded from the Lakers to Miami in 04. They get to the conference finals in 05. They go on to win in 06. It's interesting, too. Gail Goodrich in 1976 left the Los Angeles Lakers. And as part of compensation for him signing with the Jazz, the Lakers were rewarded with future picks. One of those future picks turned out to be the number 1 pick in the 1979 NBA draft. And who was that pick? Earvin Magic Johnson. So sometimes offseason trades take a few years. And one of the reasons I think that, and one of the key points that Tim Legler talked about last week on the Old Man of the Three Things, is something called core continuity. Look, groups have to figure out how to win together. You think about the big three, the Heatles, right? That group Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, they didn't win right away. They had to go through some battles. They had to figure it out together, which brings me to this year's crop of offseason trades. Bradley Beal to the Suns. Now, you can make an argument. There's not as much core continuity there, right? Total roster overhaul. No Cam Johnson, no DeAndre Ayton, no Mikal Bridges, no Chris Paul. Booker and Durant, limited time together. Do I think that team's going to be awesome? Sure. I think that team's going to be great. But if you look at the Golden State Warriors, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, all three of those groups have that core continuity. Ultimately, for me, the trade that really raised my eyebrows was the trade of Damian Lillard to the Milwaukee Bucks. I think he's a perfect fit for Giannis. I think he gives them something they kind of haven't had, which is somebody who can absolutely stretch the defense off the dribble, play pick and roll with Giannis, and be a closer, something the Milwaukee Bucks have struggled at times with, especially in playoff games. Then, on top of that, the Boston Celtics, who have some core continuity, right? Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Derek White, Al Horford. Then they bring in Kristaps Porzingis, who gives them a bunch of offensive optionality, a bunch of lineup optionality. And on top of that, Jrue Holiday, who was in the Damian Lillard trade, gets traded to the Boston Celtics. So what's really interesting about Jrue going to Boston is that time and time again, every time Damian Lillard is asked about the perimeter player that is the best defender or does the best job on him or gives him the hardest time, he always says Jrue. Almost always says Jrue. So two teams, to me, made perfect trades, and they have core continuity. And look, all four of those teams, the Phoenix Suns, the Golden State Warriors, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, I think they're championship contenders. I think they all have a great chance to be champions come June of 2024. And so while I highlighted, 6 trades of star players that have happened in the offseason where then the team won a championship the next year, I think this year could absolutely be number 7. And Denver, hello, hi. You guys didn't trade for a star player this offseason. That's why I haven't really talked about you. But yes, you're a contender too. Welcome to another episode of Islands in the League, our exclusive YouTube. He's fucking psyched. George, lay down. 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 Okay. That had an immediate impact on a team's championship title. I can't concentrate. I can't. He's itchy. Today is Halloween. Now, when I was a kid, I was not allowed to go and celebrate Halloween, so I didn't trick or treat. I didn't dress up in any costumes. As I got older, I started to embrace Halloween. My family and I now dress up in themed costumes every year. I thought it'd be fun to take a look at some NBA players who fully embraced Halloween. And I will be grading their Halloween costumes. All right, I'm not sure who this is, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure what this is. I think it's the Grinch. I don't remember the fanny pack being a part of the Grinch's costume. And who is that, Jason?
JaVale McGee.
JaVale, you get 6 pumpkins out of 10. Oh, jeez. All right, I know who this is. Edward Scissorhands or Edward Scissorshands? LeBron James. He went for it. I got to give him props. I'm going to give this 10 pumpkins out of 10. Okay. Took me a second here. But I think this is the Joker. It's Jared Leto's Joker. See, Again, I appreciate just going for it. And this person clearly did. I'm not sure who this person is. That's an easy 9.5 out of 10 for me. Who is this?
Bradley Beal.
I thought it was Bradley. All right, that is also the Joker. It seems to be a popular character. Costumes off the charts, right? You got the makeup, you got all the details on the face, the suit that's clearly well-tailored. On top of that, cinematography of this shot and the placement and the location. This is an easy 10-10 for me. Pumpkins. 10 out of 10 pumpkins for DeAndre Jordan. All right, this is it Bob Ross? Honestly, I will give points for the thought. There's no way Bob Ross wore jeans that fit like that. I want to score this higher, but I got to go 6 pumpkins out of 10.
Do you know who this is?
It's a white guy. It's definitely a white guy. It's not Nick Stauskas. Who is it?
It's Nick Nurse.
It's Nick Nurse. I was close. I got the Nick part right. Good for you, Nick. I'm going to go 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10 pumpkins. for this group of guys. And by the way, that's not me hating on the Sacramento Kings. It's not. Grant Williams and Batman. Don't love that you can see a little part of his neck. Again, if I'm going to score this high, I need attention to detail. There's a reason DeAndre Jordan scored 10 out of 10 pumpkins. Good effort, poor execution. 3.5 out of 10. So we got Pascal Siakam dressed as 50 Cent. Yeah, I mean, I got no notes on this one. I'm going to deduct 0.25 pumpkins for that, just based on body build. But yeah, 9.75 pumpkins out of 10. Is that Jahlil Okafor? Believe it or not, I've seen this movie, Blue Streak. Martin Lawrence, pizza delivery guy, trying to get the diamond back. I get it. Again, you get extra points for just going for it. You know, he stuffed his tummy as well. I'll give him 9. 9 pumpkins out of 10. Ooh. I mean, this is an all-timer for me. Russ and Nick Collison. We've got Sydney, Rhonda, Billy, and Gloria from White Man Can't Jump. Just a tremendous effort. Bonus points here for attention to detail. Bonus points for a thematic ensemble executed really well. And bonus points, I think, just for the reference itself. Iconic movie. Yeah, 12 pumpkins out of 10. A perfect score, +2. It's that good. Is he supposed to be Mayor Pete? Is that what it is?
Yeah, how'd you know?
Oh, I mean, I just guessed. Otherwise, you'd just be showing me a picture of Brad Stevens in a tie, and I think that was weird. But my first thought when I saw the picture, there's Mayor Pete. Decent execution. Obviously, there's a little bit of a doppelgangerness. I'll give it 5.5 pumpkins out of 10. Think this is Stone Cold Steve Austin, and obviously it's Damian Lillard. I mean, the reality is, Dame put on a T-shirt. He put on some jeans. He put on some sneakers. He grabbed a faux wrestling belt, and then put on a Stone Cold Steve Austin mask. I'm going to give Dame 6.5 out of 10.
He had the walk down.
The walk? Okay, apparently I've been corrected by Jason. Dame had the walk down, so I'll give him an extra bonus point. There you go. 7.5 out of 10. All right. First of all, I can't tell if this is actually an NBA player. I don't have any clue what this is supposed to be. Jason, can you help me out on this one?
So this is Nurkic, and he's supposed to be the Beast from Beauty and the Beast.
Oh my God. I don't even know where to start with this one. I gotta go 4 pumpkins out of 10. The mask is so small. Here's the deal. This is me. A couple things to note. I came directly from trick-or-treating. We took my kids trick-or-treating in Uptown and came directly to the arena from trick-or-treating. So again, nice job. Not a lot of neck showing. It's nearing a perfect score. And then you get below the waist. And I'm always tough on myself. Unfortunately, I'm just giving myself a 6.5 out of 10. 6.5 pumpkins out of 10. Sorry, JJ. Happy Halloween, everyone. Tell me in the comments if you agree or disagree with my scoring system. All right, let's get to our last segment of today's episode of Islands in the League, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Let's get to our conversation with resident sports betting expert Josh Appelbaum. We're going to chat about some early NBA season action and get his thoughts on some plays that you should be making. All right, let's welcome in Josh Appelbaum from DraftKings and VSiN. Josh, as always, my friend, thank you so much for joining us. A lot to get into. I think we sort of look at some futures here. We're starting out the season. Great first week of the season. Very entertaining. But there's some obvious ones, I think, in terms of teams that I think are going to make the playoffs. And then there's some teams that are probably going to be fighting in that 6 to 10 range all season. And I think it's going to really go down to the wire. It's going to be fascinating to watch a number of these teams mature and evolve over the course of a season. Anything in terms of make-miss playoffs, anything that jumps out at you about certain teams?
Yeah, JJ, it's great to be with you. Really excited to start year 2 working with you on the betting market here. But I would look toward a couple things, JJ. So number one, know that as a bettor, you can bet on just who will make or miss the playoffs. You'll get a yes, you'll get a no, you'll get a minus number and a plus number. Now, to me, the obvious ones are unbettable. Like, will the Celtics or Bucks make the postseason? They're minus 8,000. That's such a huge number. There's really no value, not worth betting. Flip it the other way. Blazers, they're minus 8,000 to miss the playoffs. Again, most likely to happen, but again, because the number's so high, not a lot of value. So I'm going to throw at you 3 teams, JJ, that are kind of right at the even money number, like maybe plus 110, minus 110. To me, these are the teams that have a lot of value for bettors. So let's start with your take on the Indiana Pacers, JJ. They're off to a good start so far, 2-0, pretty good young core. They've made a lot of trades over the years, but now you have Halliburton, Mathurin, Aaron Nesmith is actually playing pretty well for them as well. They were 35-30 and 47 last year. Year before that, they were 25-57. So they're kind of trending in the right direction. Good young core here. And then also adding a veteran like Bruce Brown. To me, with these young cores, and you know this, JJ, the veterans can really benefit the team. And a coach that you played for, Rick Carlisle, with a lot of experience. So the Pacers right now, yes, to make the postseason is plus 105. If you think they can make it, a little bit of plus money. No is minus 135. So again, the market is leaning no. But JJ, what do you think about the Pacers at plus 105? Can they make the playoffs this year?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's a team that I'm particularly intrigued by. Their offense through the first couple games has looked phenomenal. They are going to score the basketball. And Tyrese Halliburton jumped onto the scene last year. Obviously, people knew his name from the Kings trade, but really established himself last year as an all-star, all-NBA type player. Played on USA Basketball this summer. The thing I love about their team is the pieces fit together. They have a ton of shooting. They have Miles Turner who can pick and pop. He can dive. Rick Carlisle is, in terms of a tactician and an offensive coach, he's a genius in my estimation. I played for him. He's as good of a tactician that I played for in the NBA. They have the young guys. You know, they've sort of established Aaron Nemhard now as the backup PG. TJ McConnell will still get some minutes and change the course of the game and change the momentum with his energy and his defense and his pace. But it all starts for me with Tyrese Halliburton. And I think as good as he was last year, I think he'll be even better this year. I really believe that. And if you look at this team, if you remember, Josh, Tyrese Halliburton gets hurt, sprains some ligaments in his knee, or the back of his knee, hyperextended, whatever it was, in a January game against the New York Knicks. Going into that game, they were in the playoffs. They were in 5th or 6th place. They had a winning record. The team just absolutely cratered after that. Tyrese didn't play as much when he came back from the injury down the stretch. You know, you got to protect your draft selection odds. But this is a team that, for basically half the year last year, was a playoff team in the Eastern Conference. Now, the question is, you know, because of the play-in, can they get into the top 6 for me? If I'm comfortable saying they can be a top 6 team, then I like this bet. I do. They're at plus 105 to make the playoffs right now, minus 130 to not make the playoffs. Boston's going to be in the playoffs. Milwaukee's going to be in the playoffs. I think Cleveland's going to be in the playoffs. So far, the early returns with Tyrese Maxey as the lead guard for the Philadelphia 76ers have been pretty damn good. They've got Joel Embiid. They're likely going to be in the playoffs, right? I would never count out the Miami Heat. So I got 5 teams that I think in the Eastern Conference are going to be in the playoffs. The Knicks are the team that have not looked great so far. I've got their game on Friday against Milwaukee. They haven't looked great so far. Is there some regression there? That's a question mark for me. They were the other top 6 team. So then you start thinking about, Josh, you know, the whether it's the Magic, which we might get to, the Bulls, which we might get to, you know, some of these other teams in the Eastern Conference that are going to fight to get in that top 6. They're going to fight to get in the play-in. I think, in my estimation, in terms of all these sort of second-tier Eastern Conference teams, Tyrese Halliburton and the Indiana Pacers are the team that I like the most in terms of what I know I'm going to get out of them. They're going to be elite offensively. They're going to have a chance to win every night with their shooting. Miles Turner can anchor a defense, right? So I like this bet. I do, because I like the Indiana Pacers as a basketball team, and I think they're going to have a really good chance to be in the playoffs in April.
JJ, I'm right there with you. And again, this line is moving in their direction. And you made a really good point here. As a bettor, you always want to look at the house rules and kind of the fine print. There's 2 ways to attack it. You can bet to make the playoffs, or you can bet to make the play-in tournament. So just be aware just regardless of what you want to bet, to know what you're getting into and what you have to accomplish there. Another team I want to throw at you, JJ, the Orlando Magic. We're kind of on the topic of young up-and-coming teams. The Magic are off to a good start this year, 2-0. Also, you look at the Magic, they're plus 135 right now to make the postseason. Again, to make the play-in tournament, they're plus 120, so you get a smaller payout, but you're going to kind of pad yourself a little bit there. The no is minus 170. This is another team with a young core. Wagner has been great. Paolo Banchero, Suggs, Fultz. You draft a kid, Anthony Black, really high, 6 overall. To me, it's the team, JJ, that could use some veteran, additions here as a really young club. But Jamal Mosley, who also has kind of had this team on the rise. His first year of coaching, JJ, they only won 22 games. Last year, they won 34. They're kind of moving in the right direction, and they're number 3 defensive efficiency so far this year, playing pretty good defense. So what do you think, JJ? Yes, plus 135. Can they make the postseason? Or no, minus 170? Are they more likely to miss the playoffs?
Another team that I really like, and we should note when we talk about the record from last season, they started out 5-20. They were 29-28 the rest of the way. They have 2 studs, 2 guys who can absolutely play elite basketball in Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. And having played for Jamal Mosley in Dallas as well, another guy that I love, I'm bullish on the Magic. I am. Now, do I think they're going to be a top 6 team? No, I don't. But I think they will be in the mix for not only a play-in spot, but potentially a 7-8 spot in the play-in game where they could end up hosting, depending on how it plays out, they could end up hosting a play-in game. So, yeah, I mean, it's similar, slightly better odds, I guess, than the Pacers if you're looking to cash out and make some more money. But I think they're another team that is absolutely going to be in the mix in the Eastern Conference.
And to your point, JJ, make the play-in tournament. You want to get that plus 120 versus plus 130 to make the regular kind of lineup there to make the postseason. Now, this is the one that I was most interested to ask you about, JJ, the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, if you look at the current odds right now for the Memphis Grizzlies to make the playoffs, yes is minus 145. So they are expected to make the postseason. No is plus 120. What's really interesting is that, again, what's going to happen with Ja Morant? They're 0-3 right now to start the year. It could be a buy low opportunity because, again, going into this year with a healthy Morant, this is probably, minus 200, minus 300. It's much more likely to happen. You do have your good young core with Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr. You add Marcus Smart for some toughness, but then also you miss Steven Adams for the year with an injury. But to me, it's all about Morant. Now, he's serving his 25-game suspension. He's not going to come back, eligible to come back until December 19th. JJ, are you worried about the Grizzlies, in the situation with Ja Morant? Will he get everything, kind of straightened out and come back? And will this team, be on the pursuit of a playoff chance again? Or is this something that's going to loom over this team? Are there going to be continued issues here? If you like the Grizzlies, it's like minus 145 is not a bad number. It's pretty short to make the postseason. But again, what's going to happen with Ja Morant? Is this a playoff team, JJ?
Well, with Ja Morant, it is. I guess this is, if we're looking at this as like a betting opportunity, I'm scared just because I don't know what their record is going to be after 25 games. Because we should note that not only did they lose Ja Morant, and of course they got Marcus Smart, and we all know my affinity for Marcus Smart as a basketball player. They also lost Tyus Jones. He was involved in that 3-team trade that netted Porzingis to Boston, Marcus Smart to the Grizzlies. Tyus ends up in Washington. Tyus played excellent basketball whenever Morant was out of the lineup last year. That team had a winning record whenever Morant was out of the lineup. Tyus Jones was a difference maker for this team. So they not only don't have Ja for 25 games, they don't have the safety net of Tyus Jones. And I'm not concerned about this team in terms of December 19th on. I think they'll win a lot of basketball games. I think Ja Morant is that good. I love Desmond Bane, love Jaren Jackson Jr. But we should also note the loss of Dylan Brooks, right? And you can talk all you want about his shot selection and his antics or whatever. The guy contributed to winning on the Memphis Grizzlies. So I guess the big question mark for me is, are they hovering around 500 on December 19th, or are they 5-20? And so this is something I'm just not comfortable really giving a take on until we know the state of affairs in the Western Conference come December 19th.
I'm right there with you, JJ. And again, the beauty of this bet is it's pretty much available all season long. So if you feel like you have an edge, you can bet it now. If you feel like you want to wait and see, maybe you might miss a good number, but you also want that data to kind of inform your opinion in your bet. Last one, JJ, for you, the Chicago Bulls. Looking at the Bulls to make the playoffs, they're an underdog. They're plus 155. To miss the playoffs, they're minus 200. Now they're off to a 1-2 start. They did go 40-42 last year. They've kind of been a 500 team last couple of years. They did make the play-in tournament. They're plus 140, by the way, to make the play-in tournament. You have your big three, Levine, DeRozan, Vucevic. To me, with Chicago, it's about their offense. Like, you have some big-name players, but last year they're only 21st in offensive efficiency. This year they're 26th. They play good defense. They don't have a ton offensively. But then, JJ, in Chicago, obviously it's a basketball market. People love their hoops. But how are they going to handle this? If this is another year where you're around 500, do they make trades? Do you sell one of these big-name players? What's your outlook on the Bulls this year? Can they make the playoffs, or maybe is this a bet to stay away from?
Yeah, this is another team with a ton of question marks for me. DeMar DeRozan, there's been some extension talks, but if he gets to February with no extension, and this team is again in that same spot that they seem to have been in, that 8, 9, 10, right? Just losing Lonzo Ball for this team 2 years ago, they've just kind of like dropped off. And, he was like the perfect complement for me to DeMar and to Zach on the perimeter, where he's going to create pace with the pass. He's going to give it up. He's not going to dominate the ball. He's going to shoot over 40% from three. He's going to make a difference on defense. And so they just haven't been the same team that they were for the first 2 months of 2 seasons ago, when at one point they were in first place in the Eastern Conference. So too many question marks around DeMar and his future with the Bulls. And then also, Zach Lowe and I talked about this last week on the podcast. It's like, when are we going to see like a jump from Patrick Williams, who's gotten off to a poor start, not a lot of usage so far. If he can't be a huge difference maker, I don't like this team's chance of making the playoffs. And it's interesting because you bring up the offense, and it's like, well, you've got Zach LaVine, you've got DeMar DeRozan, you've got Nikola Vucevic. You should be a good offensive team, and they just haven't been efficient on that end. And so, yeah, I there's some cause for concern. But again, it's similar to the Grizzlies. It's a lot of question marks. And I go back to, the first two teams you asked me about. I'm not saying the Pacers and the Magic are going to be elite like the Boston Celtics or the Milwaukee Bucks, but I know who those teams are. And I feel the direction. I feel the momentum that those teams are going with. And I like those plays better than I like the previous two plays.
I'm right there with you, JJ. So, yeah, to me, this is a play on the Magic, and as well, a play here on the teams that we talked about there with the Pacers to make the postseason.
Josh, we are going to be checking in with you throughout this season, and those would be stuff to talk about all the time. But I like where we started today. We've spent a ton of time on all of the championship contenders on all our different shows, and I'm glad we got to cover these teams today. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon. This has been another episode of the Islands League. As always, had a fun time with you guys. Love talking NBA history, love giving my takes, and of course, love rating Halloween costumes. As always, thank you. Hit that subscribe button. We'll be back soon with another episode of Islands in the League presented by DraftKings Sportsbook.